Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is Ship Updates. Now, ordinarily, the focus of this show obviously would be ships, but a lot of the things that we're getting in 310 are more driven around systemic changes and not individual ships. Of course, we have upcoming things like the Star Runner and whatnot to get excited about, but unfortunately, we haven't seen any more, kind of work in progress shots, or at least I have not seen them as of the recording of this video. So there's nothing really cool to check out there, though I am very hopeful that in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see something like that. But as we move into 310, and once again, as of the recording of this video, we do not have a date and time on that yet. Given the current state of 310, I am not overly hopeful that it's going to be this weekend, though I wouldn't be surprised if we see it in the next 2 weeks. But I mean, that's just guesswork, That's nothing you can really set your clock by. What CIG has been talking about with 310 is they are recognizing some of the difficulties and some of the things that we are talking about, and that there's good stuff there, because it's one thing to kind of say, hey, you know what, I don't like this, or hey, I think that this should be changed, and then to just kind of receive no feedback. But certainly in All About 310 today, they were acknowledging a lot of the problems in 310 and a lot of the issues. Some of them cannot be corrected immediately. Some of them are going to be a little while before they're corrected, but others are being corrected fairly quickly. One of the big ones, I think, for me personally, one of the big ones that I saw corrected is the return to what I as a more traditional MMO player, what I would refer to as tab targeting. And for most people, it would be cycling through your radar targets rather than having to mark your targets visually. We are going back to a system that enables that. We are going back to that place. So if you were kind of going in, you were hitting your hotkeys to target, whatever's on your radar, and it wasn't working, we are going back to that. We are still, I guess, going to have that look and designate system, but is going to be alongside the old-fashioned tab targeting system. So that is something that I think a lot of us will be very pleased with, something that will be very exciting. Now, one of the other issues that has come up quality of life-wise, and this is something that has come up many, many, many times. It is not restricted to 310. This has been going on since we had Arena Commander, since we had that, which is the problem of certain elements of the HUD blending into bright backgrounds. We know that this is an issue, and this has been an issue for a long time. Now, the community, certainly many members of the community have a certain feeling towards this, which is, let us change the color of our HUD dynamically. Now, CIG is generally of the mindset that the color of the HUD helps you identify what type of ship that you're in. So I'm in a Drake ship, so my HUD is green. You're in an Aegis ship, so your HUD is blue. You're in an alien ship, so your HUD is red. Generally, that is kind of how CIG feels that things should be. Now, I'm sure that many of us emphatically disagree with that, and we feel that this should be something that is customizable. Now, you see me using the mobiGlas now, and in the future, we are going to be able to customize our mobiGlas colors, not just the color of our mobiGlas that we wear on our wrist, but the color of the presentation. But that requires going into building blocks or transferring mobiGlas into building blocks and then making those adjustments, basically allowing us to do them. And CIG was talking about, well, we're going to be making a dynamic system for the HUD that makes it a little bit brighter or a little bit darker, depending on the environment. That's not enabled now, but that is something that is going to come in the future. I feel personally that the color kind of segregation to various manufacturers is pointless. You know what kind of ship you got in the moment you stepped into the ship. Star Citizen is a first-person game, We don't simply go, I want to fight battle, and then push a battle button, and then all of a sudden you're in a battle. No. Star Citizen is, a granular first-person experience, and so when you go and you step into your ship, you know who made that ship. And I feel that allowing players to customize the color of their HUD, though I would like to see some more customization options in the future, but that's a down the road and over the horizon thing. I think that allowing players to do that can account for certain issues that you may encounter with color blindness, where even though you have two distinctly different colors because their luminosity is somewhat the same, or depending on someone's color blindness, they may entirely blend into each other and therefore be useless to some players. So, and not only that, I mean, you kind of want your ship to be your ship. That's kind of when CIG was selling skins for ships and whatnot, and I kind of went I kind of want to be able to do my own custom job and come up with my own custom colors based on, the basic paint scheme that a ship has, and being able to adjust certain patches of color to match my tastes. And I feel that the HUD is kind of the same thing. There's a certain functionality, quality of life issue there that I think that this serves to improve, but just to give a ship its own personality and make it distinct from every other, same type of ship is something important as well. So I hope that in the future, CIG is going to kind of see the light there and say, you know what, you can customize the color of your HUD and your interface, not just through on your mobiGlas, but in general in how you interact with the world, making a much more personalized experience and maybe accounting for certain limitations that you may have that other players may not. For instance, color blindness. I understand the desire to create style and atmosphere. I really do. But I feel that when that can have potentially a negative impact on gameplay, that's when you start to have to question that ideal. You might be looking for a certain design, a certain aesthetic, a certain mood, but ultimately, it still has to be a serviceable and playable video game for your audience. And so I feel that when you're kind of making choices like that and you're just kind of hardwiring them in and saying, no, you can't change that, especially when it comes to something as core to the game as the HUD or as the UI, I feel that if we are looking at changes like this to the mobiGlas, then we should be looking at changes like similar changes to the HUD and to the coloring options. And while it may only pass through the lens of one person, and we kind of always know that, one of the things that we always hear in these videos is that we took it to CR and CR said this, we took it to CR and CR said that. And that's always to me, that's always a little disheartening to hear, because I don't think that Star Citizen should be built around one person's idealization of what it should be. I don't think that Star Citizen should be built entirely to fit my ideals. I feel that Star Citizen should kind of try to, cut its own path right down the middle and look at all the different feedback and then take away the changes that they should take away that any of us might suggest are the things that make the game better for everyone. Right? Or for the largest group of the players. And so when I was hearing about changes to the mobiGlas and making it so you could change the color of the UI, I was like, you got to do that for the ships too, right? You understand that. This whole, Drake is green, Aegis is blue thing is pointless, and it doesn't really do anything for the players. And I think even if you look at it as a personal style option, I would much rather have the idea of customizable colors than just, this is the fixed color that you have and this is what you must use. Even if we can adjust it on the fly, that would be pretty amazing. And that would solve a major UI issue that we currently have. Now, to kind of round things out and finish off, there was one other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about because it affects a large swath of ships, specifically fighters. CIG was talking about high-speed combat and the adjustments that they were looking at making. And they talked about certain adjustments like fixed weapons were going to have a little extra dispersion, or that it was going to take longer for auto gimbals to lock on, things like that, especially when traveling at a high rate of speed above and beyond normal SCM speeds, right? And they experimented with other things. They experimented with, possibly weakening shields on certain facings when you're traveling at, certain speeds. But ultimately, that one didn't work because even though they kind of liked the idea, the UI support wasn't there to really show players what was happening. UI once again. I really wish that would get kind of nailed down. But they were talking about this, and they're, because they want to bring combat in closer, but they don't want to restrict speed. And speed is an important factor. And I think that not a lot of people are appreciating this, and they're kind of looking at it from the idea of fighter versus fighter. But in Star Citizen, unlike Squadron 42, we are not limited to fighters. There is a huge variation in the size and complexity and power of the ships that we can purchase or that we can, fly in game. And I think that what CIG is looking at, they're not really taking larger ships into account when they're kind of coming up with these ideas. So if you think about the ship that I'm flying right now, which is a Caterpillar is not what you would normally call a fast ship. But a Caterpillar can accelerate to a pretty impressive speed of just over 800 meters a second beyond SCM speed. Though, obviously, things are going to get adjusted and things will vary from time to time depending on when you're watching this video. That's still a heck of a lot of speed. And when you think about, let's say, if you're in a fighter and you're trying to pursue a Caterpillar, that now presents you with a lot of interesting problems because your primary advantage, the advantage that players often would crow about back in the days of Arena Commanders, I'm just going to get into your blind spot and shoot you and there's nothing you can do about it. But the reality of high-speed combat is that's not really possible anymore, because the faster that I travel, I can still rotate on my central axis without impacting my ability to fly forwards. I can decouple my ship. There are many things that I can do to bring weapons to bear on you and still continue to travel at that high rate of speed in a direction. And if you try to follow me, your maneuverability has now completely gone out the window. And that's something really to think about, because as they're making these adjustments to kind of bring fighters in and make them fight closer to each other, in a weird way, this is kind of a passive buff to larger ships. So whether you're playing with friends or you have NPCs manning your turrets or server blades, automatically firing your turrets, in trying to improve fighter versus fighter combat, CIG is in fact widening the gap for fighting larger ships and making some interesting future possibilities for these much larger ships. Wait, I think, on the Caterpillar, there you go. I'm accelerating to full SCM, or full beyond SCM speed, so 880 and change, I think. Well, whatever it ends up at. When you start thinking about fighters trying to travel and dogfight at these speeds, it's next to impossible. They end up just hanging in space, and if they try to make a fast and quick turn, they're going to lose control of their ship. And they're just going to continue to slide in a straight line in the direction they're going and starting to slow down so that they can make that direction change, which kind of makes them a sitting duck. So it's going to be very interesting if you're an owner of a large ship. This could potentially be a very interesting thing in the future to think about, is how you equip your turrets and things like that to enhance what seems to be a pretty solid advantage that you're going to have at high rates of speed against ships like fighters. So the future for big ships in combat, even ones that are modestly outfitted in weapons, as long as they're turreted, could be pretty darned interesting. And even the ones that really don't have sizable turrets, things like your Corsair or your, what's a good one, the Cutlass to a certain degree, all the Freelancer is another one. Even being able to decouple those ships at a high rate of speed and just bring your main weapons to bear on such a target, it could have devastating consequences for your pursuers. So for a lot of people worried about, oh, fighters are going to chase me down and blow up my big ship and hide in my blind spot, it's going to be interesting to see where this kind of falls together in the long run, because it seems like CIG doesn't want to take away the speed, but they want to try to bring fighters in closer together, and that has possibly something that they haven't really looked at, a very positive unintentional benefit for the big guys like this. It can be something very interesting to watch in the future. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.